welcome to The Print. Today we're in conversation with former External Affairs Minister of the country, Mr. Salman Khurshid. Sir, thank you for speaking to us at The Print.
Pleasure.
He's still an eminent spokesperson in the Congress, and you're also a lawyer, sir. But we'll start with something that has just come up right now. Mr. Donald Trump, the United States President, has announced that the ceasefire is over. He's referred to Iran as scums. He said that we don't want to engage with them, and essentially signaling that the war is back on.
Well, I think that one shouldn't react too quickly, too soon. And I would imagine that Iran will also hold back its horses because in negotiations and during negotiations, particularly in the style of President Trump, a lot of things are floated, a lot of things are said, but the bottom line often remains quite different. I think the objective necessity of not prolonging the war and not escalating it is quite clear on all sides, and particularly on the United States side. So I would wait a while. I mean, there have been moments when rockets have been fired, the peace has been disturbed, but they've gone back to talking again. And I imagine that process is what will continue. So I wouldn't say anything very quickly.
But for an average Indian, or for that matter, a citizen in the United States or Iran, why is Mr. Trump making these outrageous statements? He holds a position of power. He doesn't follow up on his statements. Sometimes he does. It's very erratic, the way he speaks.
Yeah, well, I think people are now across the globe, particularly his allies in Europe. He's at the NATO conference just now in Istanbul. Everyone is very clear that he has a different style altogether. You can describe it in different manners. I mean, some people describe it in positive way, some people describe it in somewhat negative and somewhat skeptical sort of manner. But he is different from the run-of-the-mill president that one would be accustomed to, or indeed leaders across the democratic world. He is very, very different. He is perhaps a little impulsive, perhaps a little peculiar in his reactions and responses. So I think that to attempt to try and answer that is maybe a futile exercise. You just have to take him for what he is and hope for the best sort of outcomes that you can get.
But do you think India is negotiating effectively with the US on the proposed trade agreement?
I'm very clear that India has kept itself at a peculiarly low sort of role in the conflicts in West Asia earlier, the conflict between Israel and Gaza. Then, of course, this conflict between Israel and US on one side, and of course the GCC countries, and Iran on the other side, supported to some extent by some other countries. We've kept a low profile between in the European conflict between Ukraine and Russia. We've kept a very low profile there. Somewhat inexplicable, because India has always played a very major role in any crisis anywhere in the world, and people look to India and take India's voice seriously, and that's why India is considered a serious candidate for being a permanent member of the Security Council, even if it's taking time. But it's India's presence in the world and India's willingness to speak what is the correct thing in the world has a value, has an important following, particularly in the global south. But why India has kept its profile so low and been reluctant to say anything at all is a matter of great surprise. Indeed, it's a matter of concern, I would imagine.
Even during Operation Sindoor, there were countries that came out publicly in support of Pakistan, but India did not have any major backers. What does this say about India's foreign policy? And in fact, even in the conflict with Iran and Israel and US, India has tactfully aligned with the Israel and US, however, then saying that we would want for somewhat of a the war should stop, but taking no sides.
See, I've noted that India, the spokespersons for India, at whatever level, the Prime Minister's level or the level of the EAM, or the official spokespersons of the Ministry of External Affairs, have tried to project a view that we have our concerns and we have our priorities, and self-interest is the highest priority that any country can have, and that's legitimate. I mean, there's no issue there. There's no problem with that at all. But self-interest can be enlightened and non-enlightened. So if you have an enlightened self-interest, your approach is going to be very different. And then Indian foreign policy has always since independence had an ethical and a moral dimension. That seems completely and utterly missing. I mean, we're like in a marketplace, looking at the best price for best goods that we can take home, transactional. Now, if you're transactional, other people also are transactional. Then which transaction succeeds on which day is a matter of chance. Do you have the right market? You succeed. You don't have the right market. Is it the buyer's market? Is it the seller's market? All these matters are matters that put a big question mark on our foreign policy as of today. And I just hope that we can learn a lesson and get back to doing foreign policy in a more serious manner.
Speaking of foreign policy in a senior manner, Mr. Jaishankar, in an all-party meeting, allegedly, according to sources, said that we're not dalals like Pakistan, so we do not meddle in the affairs of other people.
Well, I mean, interesting that he should have used the term. I don't think anyone in government or the opposition even would want to endorse his concern about being dalals. I mean, we can't be and must not be. That's absolutely clear. But if you're not a dalal, it doesn't mean that you cannot use your good offices for peace in the world. I mean, are you telling me that anybody who intervenes, interjects, helps in negotiations, helps in bringing about peace, are dalals and nobody else? I find that kind of sort of way to attribute the active participation of peace-loving countries somewhat unacceptable.
Do you think there's any scope left for dialogue with Pakistan because the Indus Water Treaty is in abeyance, the airspace is shut? Do you think we've shut all doors? Do you think there's no scope of negotiation? Or do you think the relationship can get better, and should it?
Well, let me just put it in context. You've just seen President Trump treat the Turkish president as a friend, and immediately announced that we are going to remove all the sanctions and embargoes on Turkey and make Turkey a friend, and even offer Turkey aircraft, American fighter aircrafts, etc. So if they can talk, anyone can talk. And people everywhere in the world have talked after bitterness that has been felt during hostility amongst themselves. This has happened after the world wars. It's happened during and after the Vietnam confrontation. It has happened in civil wars in Africa. It's happened in Europe. So everybody talks. The point is that do you talk under compulsion, or do you talk with a future aspiration that you need to get beyond killing and beyond hostility? Now, what has happened with India and Pakistan is that our attempts to talk or dialogue in the past have all been betrayed. And it seems that some people treat conversations and dialogues as a sign of weakness. Obviously, if it continues as a sign of weakness, then you can't get anywhere. But for neighbors to be able to live together, there has to be peace. And peace doesn't happen unless you talk. Peace doesn't happen. You either completely obliterate somebody, and then you have a peace which is often called the peace of the graveyard, or you talk to them and make sense. But when you talk to people, there's always some element of sharing, giving and taking. You can't just talk to people and say, I will give nothing, but I will take everything. And this Pakistan must also understand. But right now, I feel right now the atmosphere is not conducive, is not very positive, and talking under pressure of a third party, I guess, is not a good idea. There should be a genuine desire to talk on both sides, and then you can work out on problems that begin with the humanistic problems first. Then there are problems of compensating people who have suffered at your hands, etc., etc. You can have a whole range of agenda then to talk about.
As a former external affairs minister, how do you assess Mr. Jaishankar's tenure? You have, of course, said that our foreign policy lacks seriousness, but how do you assess
Well,
his
let's be
tenure?
very clear. Let's be very clear that, as his peers would tell you, he is an exceptionally bright person. He has vast experience, and he was certainly very well equipped to head the Foreign Service, which he did. But it takes more than just the diplomatic expertise that you may have as part of your training in the Foreign Service to become a political person, a person who has political sense and who can apply political perceptions to foreign policy propositions. And I think that's where he may be lacking. But then, in fairness to him, it may well be the constraints that the kind of government he works for and the kind of seniors and people that he works with may have placed an enormous burden on his ability to take the use the right words or take the right positions. But I think we can only go by with the bottom line, and the bottom line is that India is not looking very pretty in terms of foreign policy. Of course, transactionally, we are dealing with countries across the globe. The Prime Minister is hyperactive in reaching out to people, getting applauded and getting rewards, etc. That's all understandable. But India is a strong market for the world, and therefore using our strong market attributes in the world is understandable. But an ethical role in the world, in a world that desperately needs ethics, is something that's called for. And unfortunately, India, despite the capacity that it has and despite the ability that it has, is refusing to exercise that role.
The Prime Minister is abroad even as we speak, and the most talked about moment was the Melody moment. The Congress spoke about it, said that this was very unserious of the Prime Minister. Do you think these foreign visits, they of course cost a lot of capital, a lot of taxpayer money? Do you think the foreign visits are actually yielding any good for the Indians?
Well, I think in many ways it could be said that these are not wasted trips. That there is something at the end. If you look at the list of agreements that are entered, the list of sales that we are able to pitch, the opportunities we are able to get for Indians in countries abroad, etc. Um, the kind of opportunity that has come to a lot of leading Indian businessmen, etc. So it can't be said that they are a complete waste. But you have to contextually understand, where are we standing in the world, even if we are making good money and bringing that home, where are we standing in the world ultimately in terms of how the world perceives us? Um, I mean, I could list a lot of things that are very, very troublesome and embarrassing. Look at the trade deal that we have with the US, still ambiguous, still unclear. What is going to happen to our MSMEs? What is going to happen to the Indian farmer, etc.? Completely and utterly unclear. And then the attitude of the United States saying, well, just take it or leave it. Of course, there are people in the US administration that speak a different language, that are more amiable, more outreaching, etc. And that sort of gives hope that finally we may end up with a good deal. But then we haven't seen much of that. I mean, we've seen people packed into planes to be sent back as illegal immigrants, for instance. We've seen how the visa restrictions are placed, how Indians have been treated in the US, and so on and so forth. I mean, the concern is expressed by serious American political persons, and the whole political party is very concerned about what is happening. So we cannot be seen as party to all that. I mean, whatever another country wants to do and its people want to do, it's their sovereign right. But we should not be seen as endorsing it. We should not be seen as becoming party to it. That's a very, very big question. And as I said, the ethical and moral element in foreign policy is something that we can't let go of, but we have, unfortunately.
Do you think India has done enough to protect its citizens caught in global conflict zones?
Well, I mean, the conflicts are expanding so exponentially that to expect India to intervene everywhere and immediately, etc., perhaps may be a very tall call. But are we prepared enough? Are we prepared enough to ensure that at least the governments that we need to deal with are not negative in their approach towards Indians? I mean, that is the first question that we need to ask. I think, for instance, in Iran, did we show enough concern in practical terms for what was happening to Iran, for Iran to be obligated or to be comforted by the presence of India in its neighborhood? Is a big question, a very big question. Did we do the right thing by letting our Prime Minister travel to Israel on the eve of the trouble that happened between Israel and Iran? Big question. Now, these are very big questions that will continue to resonate for a while. And obviously, when you speak of what kind of support and protection you can give to your citizen abroad, it depends on how you treat other countries as well, and how their expectations are properly met by us without compromising on our choice to have friends across the board. I mean, nobody ever suggests to the Indian government that you break away with X country or Y country. If we have important relations like we have with the Russian Federation, like we have United States of America, even with Israel, nobody says you give up those relations. But then, if they are friendly relations, if they are friendly countries, do we have the courage to speak to a friend to say something's going wrong? I mean, what's happened in Gaza is painful, is pathetic for humanity. Have we been able to say that? What is happening? What is happening with Ukraine? Have we been able to talk to Russia about it? Have we sort of said peace first and peace for all? Is that something that we treat as a mandate for us across the globe, or do we not? Or do we just watch everything that happens and wait for everything to go right ultimately without any participation in it by ourselves?
Right, sir. Let's move on to a more legal discourse.
Yeah.
Um, the most recent debate right now is about the parties breaking away and the defectors getting their political mileage and not having to deal with the consequences of abandoning their party after the party loses an election. The most recent one being the Trinamool Congress. Uh, Defectors have joined a party. They will be extending support to the NDA alliance. Not just the TMC. There's also Shiv Sena. There's also Aam Aadmi Party. All the defectors have not have gotten away with their political advantage? Do you think the law is being maneuvered, and do you think this law, the law that the defection law, needs to be looked into and reworked?
That's the least that one can say is that the law is in a mess. I would have happily used the Charles Dickens phrase of the law, sir, as an ass, etc.
Mr. Singhvi
Well,
used that as well.
Well, he would, but I mean, he's more directly involved in many of these matters, and I'm glad that he used that phrase. But the point is that it's easier said. It's easier said uh, than addressed. We can't just believe the law is gone and finished, and go back and go off to sleep, curl up and go off to sleep. We can't. We have to protect this country's political atmosphere. And how do we do it? How do we do it? Do we do it by accepting this? And we really, I must say that we need to urge the Supreme Court to think beyond the technicalities that hold back the Supreme Court, and invite the Supreme Court to play the role that any responsible citizen in this country would want to play today, without taking sides, without being with one party or another party, with the Congress, with the opposition, with the ruling party. Forget all that. The point is this right? Is what is happening right? Is it right to do the sort of things that these people have done, and have done because they're very upset with their own party, or because somebody is instigating them to do it, etc. There are lots of stories, I'm sure that you're familiar with them. But the bottom line is that this is unacceptable. It's almost like saying, well, there's no need for people to vote, and it doesn't matter if people don't vote. But it does matter. We are a democracy. We live by the idea of a vote, and an idea of a choice, an idea of representation. So fundamentally, you're being elected and remaining with the party that's elected you. Unless, of course, we have consciously made a law that allows you to change. But have we made such a law that allows you to change? What is it that takes for the law to be satisfied in saying that a whole party has merged? A whole party has merged. Nobody's got a test of the merger yet to this day. Not the Supreme Court, not any other court. What does it take for a whole party to merge? It's simple to say the party with 2/3 majority has merged with another party in parliament. That's understandable. But that the original party has merged, how do you get a test of an original party merging? That's the big question. And unfortunately, that loophole is being utilized very happily, destroying the very purpose of democracy in our country.
In the next parliament session, the BJP will attempt to get the delimitation bill passed.
Sure.
They did not get the 2/3 majority in the last session, but this session, they're hoping for that. They clubbed it with the women's reservation bill.
Well, they try to disguise their true intentions with the women's reservation bill, and then say that the opposition is opposing the women's reservation bill. There may be somebody in the opposition who thinks the women's reservation bill is uncalled for, but the fact is that anybody who means anything in Parliament, including our party, the Congress Party, have taken a very clear position that you do the reservation now and here. Don't wait for something to happen. Don't wait for something to be done. Just do the reservations now and here, and the law.
What is the alternate approach that the Congress could have suggested?
No.
Because delimitation needs to be done.
Delimitation is to be done. It should be done. It will be done. But why wait for women's reservation when we've already passed it in 2023? We passed the women's reservation. So the women's reservation only has to be implemented. Why link it with something else? That doesn't make sense at all. And to link it with something that will increase Parliament to 840 seats or whatever, 853 seats, etc., creating the imbalance that have, for the last 25 years, has troubled thinkers in this country about what happens to southern states and smaller states vis-a-vis those states that haven't performed well on development parameters, etc. Those are very fundamental questions, and you can't just bulldoze things and push them through simply because it serves your political purpose.
The criticism that that comes towards the Congress is that the Congress has cornered the government on issues of national security. Mr. Gandhi has attacked the government on Balakot strikes, on Operation Sindoor, when he said that it was a crime to inform Pakistan of the strikes right after they happened. Do you agree with these statements?
Well, see, our leader, Mr. Gandhi, spends a lot of time and puts in a lot of effort to get to the bottom of many of these strategic issues. Often these things are not something on which people, ordinary MPs and ordinary politicians, are well informed. But he makes it a point to get his information from verifiable and verified sources. He puts in a lot of effort. He puts them all together, and all he does is to say that if this is true, please give me an answer. And instead of getting an answer, he's told that you're being anti-national. Now, the point is that being national is not a monopoly. Being patriotic is not a monopoly of one party or one brand of people. And similarly, being concerned about strategic interest of India and the overall national interest of India cannot be a monopoly of anybody. I mean, after all, we've been in government a lot longer than they've been in government, and we have served this country. But everything that we have done, they can easily rubbish and say that that was not national, that was anti-national, that was not patriotic, and everything they are doing is patriotic. But the results that we see every day, unfortunately, don't seem to show that they are results of patriotism, etc. So Mr. Gandhi asks these questions. I think that he is an honorable person. He has a right, and the leader of opposition, he has a right that he be given the answers, even if the answers are given in private. If they give it to him, not in an open field, in an open domain, but in private to him, at least he deserves it, because you can't say that he cannot be trusted. He must be trusted because he is part of a system in which he could tomorrow be leading the country, and therefore you've got to trust him just as he's prepared to trust you, to the extent that you are transparent, you are truthful, and you're honest.
We'll speak about Mr. Tharoor as well. The stand that the Congress party has been taking with him is rather hot and cold. Sometimes Mr. Khera attacks him on a public level in a press conference. The other time, Mr. Jairam says that he is a long-standing friend, and sometimes his statements can hurt the reputation of a party. But where do you think the Congress's stand lies, and what do you personally think of this issue?
Well, I believe that many of us have grown up in traditions which make us very intertwined with the way the Congress functions and the way the Congress thinks. There are people who have come from a different background. Shashi Tharoor, by the way, has been a friend to me. Shashi Tharoor was once my voter in St. Stephen's College when I stood for president. He was my voter then. He was younger than me, obviously, a couple of years behind me. And then he went on to become president of St. Stephen's College after I left college, etc. So we all know him, and he's erudite, he's very, very bright, he's well-spoken, etc. But there's an inherent culture and ethos of organizations, including political organizations. And I think some of us are more attuned and more fixated in that ethos than some people who come from different backgrounds, etc. He's come from an international background, international diplomat, etc. So he may have a way of thinking that doesn't always match with the way an average Indian Congress person thinks, etc. And that creates a problem. But when you have problems like that, you have to work on them to try and make sure that you reduce the impact of those problems. I don't know whether he does make an effort at all or not, but I think that when you live with a team, when you work with a team, you have to sometimes make adjustments and accommodations, etc. And perhaps the expectation of the party that would happen is sometimes let down, and it creates a problem. But I think the first first duty that we all have, an obligation we have, is to create as little a problem as possibly can for our parties, and give parties the sort of backup and support that it needs in times when there are many challenges to face.
We'll speak of the India bloc now. The meeting that took place in June wasn't attended by two major allies who did ally with the India bloc previously, the DMK and the Aam Aadmi Party. Mr. Jairam Ramesh has said that he has been in touch with both the political parties, all parties he's been in touch with, and with the DMK he says that this is just a temporary phase and it's going to get better. However, on the outside, the BJP has critiqued the alliance and said that this is just an alliance based on anti-Modi issues and have no substance and ideology. But again, the question is, does the India bloc exactly exist? Because regionally, we see the TMC, the Congress fight the election. We see the left and Congress fight against each other in Kerala, in Bengal. But do you think the India bloc is existing?
Of course it is, and I think if you ask across the board, you ask leaders who participated in that meeting and who publicly espoused the cause of the India Alliance. The India Alliance is there. It's there, and it's there for good. But the trouble is that it is not perfect. It doesn't have a written constitution. It doesn't have binding rules. It has expectations, and it has a voluntary participation for a cause that everyone accepts is becoming more and more imperative. So, as I said, if it's not perfect, there'll always be issues. And knowing that we are a complicated country, and that knowing that we have a very federal sort of structure, both of our politics as well as our governance, etc. There will always be issues, but the issues get resolved and will get resolved. The more the cause becomes apparent and becomes urgent, the less will be the impact of local pulls and pushes that we all have to suffer. So I'm sure that Jairam and the rest are working very hard to ensure that if there are any hesitations, they will are removed as quickly as possible.
The alleged theft that has happened in Ram Mandir, it's shattered the faith of several devotees, the ones who did donate chanda to the temple. A lot of faith has been shattered. The opposition has been attacking the BJP. What do you think this says about the party in power?
Well, I mean, there are many questions that we have asked about the governance and responsibilities of this government. Many of them doesn't catch the public eye as quickly as this has. And this has caught the public eye because this has been placed in the public eye. Ram Mandir has been placed in the public eye as a very central piece of political thinking of this government. And so they shouldn't be surprised or shocked at all if something goes wrong there. And because it's in the center of public eye, there is a reaction from the people, etc. What these reactions will do, time will tell. Will these reactions lead to better management? Will these reactions lead to outcomes of a political nature? It's too early and not really necessary to predict right now. But I think that it can certainly be said that be it the Ram Mandir or be it any other important institution in our country, particularly if they are related with faith of a large number of people, and Ram Mandir certainly is, something unethical happening there is a matter of concern to everybody. Whether you belong to that religion or not, it's the institutional importance, I think, that matters. And that institutional importance being blemished or being brought under a question mark by the unethical behavior of any person, and no matter how important that person may be, is something that is troublesome and worrisome. And to that extent, one can only say that this is very sad.
That was Salman Khurshid speaking to us at The Print. This is Isha Mishra with Sakiba Khan for The Print. Thank you for watching.